Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 27th, 2024 meeting of the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees. This will be the final regularly scheduled meeting of fiscal year 23-24. And we will call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mays here.
Jesus here.
Brianna Texoni here.
Mask on here.
Fallsgraf here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it has been distributed to us for the regular board meeting of June 27, 2024?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Is there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes. Thank you.
Good. Called to question.
Mays aye.
Jesus, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on aye.
Fallsgraf, aye. Is there any public participation at this time?
Not at this time. Thank you.
So, do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session in which we may discuss conference of labor negotiators, public employee discussion, discipline, dismissal, release, conference with legal counsel, or student matters? Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Second.
Call to question.
Mays aye.
Jesus, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on aye.
Fallsgraf, aye. We will adjourn to closed session at 6:32 p.m. reconvene the regular meeting of the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees of June 27, 2024, and we will reconvene at,
Sorry. You say
no,
something?
you're not,
Are you saying something?
7:33 a.m. Don't make a mockery of my
Yeah.
position. You'll be able to do that yourself in 6 months.
Yeah.
Thank you. I make these mistakes on purpose so they feel important. 7:32 p.m. Our district's attorney, Mr. Weingart, will clock out and not charge us to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Slow it down.
with liberty and justice
Justice
for all.
for all. You may start your timer again, Mr. Weingart. Thank you for your support of the district, sir. I'll read the civility statement as I always do. When conducting the district's business, we will strive to communicate clearly and concisely with respect for the time of others. We will listen objectively, carefully considering the opinions of others. We'll understand the counterproductive effects of disruptive, demeaning, and intimidating behaviors. We will understand and respect district policies and procedures, and we will maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of others who have served in the past. I have nothing to report out of closed session. We will be bringing items into open session from closed session, and they will be made available to the public. So no action was taken in closed session. Do you have any public comments or reports?
No public comments, nor reports. Thank you.
Correspondence, proposals, reports, AATA rep. Carrie. That's unfortunate. I enjoy her reports very much. CSEA rep. Ms. T. Could you be more clear in how you feel? Thank you, Mrs. T. Thank you. Student representative to the board.
Thank you. Well, there's not a lot to report because our students are currently enjoying their summer vacation. A lot of our sports teams are taking the summertime to start practicing. You can see cross-country students from the high school running at Acton Park, getting ready for their season. And the winner of the Congressional Art competition, Alex Coons, has currently landed in Washington, D.C. to receive her award. So that's really cool. That's it. Thank you.
That's it? We'll have to reduce your salary. Join the party. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Board President Falsgraf. Before I get into goal 1 of student achievement for my report, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ms. Aislinn and congratulate her this evening. Given that this is Aislinn's last board meeting with us, I'm compelled to say a few words. We are truly proud of your exceptional work and your leadership throughout this academic calendar. As a student board representative, you set a shining example, not only here with the board and the community, but through the various roles that you've held at your former high school, Vasquez High School, including your contributions as part of the yearbook, and that's a huge undertaking. And we cannot forget your role as the editor for the newly founded Vasquez newspaper. Congratulations there, because all of that takes a lot of work and preparation. Your preparation for each and every board meeting was very diligent and exceptional and very thorough. You put my superintendent reports to shame, I'm just going to say, except when it came to the time when you had to read off some last names. That's all. I'm just saying, that was a little bit iffy. That was just a little bit iffy. But as a token of our appreciation, we do have a plaque that's on its way, and it's going to be here tomorrow, but we do have flowers on behalf of the board president and the school board members. They'd like to present you with this flower for your participation as our student board representative. Congratulations. We wish you all the best, Aislinn. And as part of my superintendent report, I'm just requesting a minute or two. We did get Aislinn some treats. And if you're willing to share, we'll take some too.
Sugar,
Okay.
sugar me up. That's the thing to do. Bill, do you want to talk? Go ahead, just talk, please.
All right, Aislinn, that's been great working with you for the short time I've been here. You are a true representation of what a, I'll get my notes. Thank you.
Work through it, Bill.
I'm working, I got it. Anyways, congratulations. You've done a great job and appreciated working with you.
Aislinn, it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you for all your dedication, your support to all the schools within our district, and thank you for your contributions to this board. I appreciate you, and we're going to miss you. So good luck on your future journey.
I know I've said it a couple times before, but I'm a huge fan of yours, and I know that you are off to amazing things. We got an email that you shared what your future plans are. Do you mind sharing that?
So I'm going to college to major in zoology, to work in wildlife conservation, and I'm minoring in political science because of my work on the board.
That's exciting. And you mentioned that you were going to be an advocate, merging the zoology and the political
Martha,
science.
get back up here. It's almost your turn.
I think that is a perfect goal for you, and you're just going to rock it, and you're going to be amazing. And I just want to thank you for your time that you put in to us. And I know that we were able to learn so much from you. And I just want to encourage you to keep being exactly who you are. You're good at it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for everything, Aislinn. I've thought you've done an absolutely fantastic job, and I always look forward to your reports, obviously, and getting to know you as a person's been fun as well. And so it's good. You're gonna do great things. I know it.
Aislinn,
No pressure.
it would be my request. Pay attention now. When we seat the board member, the new student board member in the fall, please be here to welcome them and make a statement from the podium. Could you do that for me? I would appreciate that very much. Wonderful service. Exemplary. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Aislinn, once again. Very brief for goal number 1, student achievement. Summer school is well underway, having been to both sites on day 1, which was last Friday, I believe the 19th. Summer school is being held at both Meadowlark and Vasquez. I'm happy to report that the opening of summer school was very smooth and went without a hitch. And thank you again to all summer school staff, teachers, counselors, custodial staff, and classified staff. Your efforts haven't gone unnoticed, and whatever you've done to get summer school off the ground so seamless, thank you. We congratulate each and every one of you. And this being our last board meeting for the fiscal year, I wish our parents, our students, and our staff a joyful and safe summer. Thank you.
Are there any submissions?
No submissions this evening, Mr.
I move that
Foxcroft.
we take a 5-minute break at this point before we get into the business.
I'll second.
Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
Yes, who's side?
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Fallsgraf, aye. Ready? We'll call this meeting back to order at 7:47 PM. So bear with us, it's going to get a little complicated. Consent agenda. So first, let's make this easy. Let's motion to discuss the consent agenda. I'll move. Let's call the question.
Cameron,
Just
I.
discussing it. Go ahead.
Mays, aye.
D'Souza,
Texoni, I.
Mask on.
Does anyone want to pull anything or abstain from discussion? So let's start with, does anyone want to pull anything off of the consent agenda? Nothing? I want to pull the warrant register. I want to pull item F, facilities, and I want to pull item G, Mako. So is there any discussion on the minutes of June 13th, purchase orders, the master contract for Academy of Advancement of Children with Autism, the quote for John Deere equipment? Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, call to question on those items.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
D'Souza,
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mask on.
Fallsgraf, aye. I'm going to introduce, do I have a motion to discuss the warrant register?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Call to question?
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
D'Souza,
Brianna, I.
Mask on it.
Fallsgraf, abstain. Lester, take over and ask for discussion about the warrant register, please, and pull the vote.
Would anybody like to discuss anything on the warrant register? Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
D'Souza,
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mask on it.
And I have abstained. I will move for a discussion of facilities summer 2024 project request for approval. Could we pull that? I need a motion for discussion. I'll move.
Second.
Trust me on this. Vote.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
D'Souza,
Texoni, I.
Mask on it.
Fallsgraf, aye. Please pull the project list up. Superintendent, could you tell us what wonderful things our staff and facilities is going to do for us this summer?
Absolutely, my pleasure. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mr. Mora, our interim director for maintenance operations and transportation, and his wonderful team before I get into the summer project, for getting our classrooms ready for summer school. They're a dynamic team. They always are. Thank you, Mr. Mora. And so while taking on the summer school classrooms, simultaneously, they are working on the summer 2024 summer projects, as you can see on your screen. It's broken down by our 3 sites as well as the Acton School / district office. So for the Vasquez High School summer projects, we have a baseball scoreboard retrofit, parts and installation, asphalt work in the parking lot that covers a large surface area, as you can see. And then the main office will get a refresh at Vasquez. High Desert carpet replacement, 3 rooms, concrete work, asphalt work, landscaping, new scoreboard and parts installation. Metal Art carpet replacement, asphalt work as well. The DO carpet replacement, new fire panel, new roof for building A, B, H, and asphalt work in parking lots, in the parking lot, which covers 31,000 plus square feet. So needless to say, they have a very busy summer, but this isn't new to Mr. Moore and his team. So hats off to him and his crew.
Does anyone have any comments?
The paint for the front office at the high school, is that the approved design paint or is that just a refresh?
Great question. Thank you, Aislinn. So that will be the presentation that Mr. Sparks provided. I think that was May 23rd. And that was a mural with some of the inspirational quotes that go in the main office at Vasquez.
Board members?
The baseball scoreboard, that was the money raised by the baseball team, as I'm pretty sure.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Yeah.
No comment.
I think it is nice to see all the work that goes on while a lot of people are on vacation, on summer vacation. So it's a good reminder that business of the district carries on.
We we now have a facilities and finance liaison, which is Mr. Mays and Mr. Mascon. When you have your first scheduled meeting, try to have that on both virtual and in person. And please take the opportunity to show the public this, and guys, weigh in whenever you can. And as representatives of all of us, beef these people up, make sure that people know what these people are doing, and be ready to support next year's plan as it comes together, especially with how we're going to get the money to do it. Thank you, whoever is running the money. Money in this category has been a struggle for me up here sometimes. I remember a couple of years ago, I had to make an action that I was very upset with. So when we start taking fundraising and putting it back into our school, where we got a financial cliff coming ahead of us when the COVID money runs out, and all kinds of things are going to happen. So I so appreciate this. Gentlemen, please make sure you can say hi to everybody in the community and let everybody know our facilities people are the heroes of the district. Thank you. That said, let's call the question that we will approve this project list.
Cameron, I.
Mays,
Jesus, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on.
Walsgraf, aye. Thanks for bearing with me tonight, but I want to do the same thing at Mako. This is a paint job, correct? I want to move this in for discussion. I'll move. Do I have everyone supporting discussing this openly?
Yep.
Vote.
Cameron, I.
Mays,
Jesus,
Mask on.
Walsgraf, aye. Please tell us what's going on here.
Sure, it's customary for school districts with bus transportation to have an audit / assessment done annually. We had ours done recently through the CHP. They're the ones who are part of the assessment. It was highly recommended per the findings to paint 2 of our school buses for it to stand out as a school bus, because there's some faded parts. You'll see on the quote as attachments to the agenda,
Let's pop it up.
one estimate for 9,600 and change, and the second bus estimate 10,400 and change. Something that we need to be doing, as it was recommended, highly recommended, through this assessment this fiscal year. Thank you.
I don't want to put in comments, conversation. Gentlemen, this is going to fall under your purview as well. People are maintaining the buses. So how many what's in our fleet? Ballparky?
It's a great question. I want to be exact. Mr. Mora, I know is online with us. Mr. Alex, do you mind patching him in? Thank you. So, Mr. Ernesto, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. So in terms of the fleet, the number of buses that we have, per the board question, thank you.
Yes, we have 4 sped buses and 5 regular buses.
Thank you.
You're
my
welcome.
My point tonight is I was one time about 1983, I pulled into a truck, a check area with a Texas State Patrol and an oil field truck that they looked at me and said, get that leaking thing out of here. They called it the Exxon Valdez or something. So those people are thorough. What I want to point out here is that our entire bus fleet for this district was inspected by California Highway Patrol officers and deemed safe. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Mora? Maybe the superintendent can help us. So my understanding is California Highway Patrol come in here and looked at all of our buses, and the only thing they could find is the paint looked a little rough on 2 of them.
That's correct.
All
That is
right.
correct.
All right. That is awesome. That's where the rubber hits the road. I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud of everything you do. The liaison is going to be up here to support your efforts and make sure everybody knows in this community what kind of work you all do. Thank you, Mr. Mora. Please go back to your family. Have a wonderful summer on behalf of the board.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice one as well.
Let's call this to question.
Cameron, I.
Mays,
Jesus, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on.
Falls Graph, aye. Personnel report, approval of superintendent's appointment agreement. Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
So I have a statement to read. I believe the employment packet was in the packet that went out to the public. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So everybody in the community knows what the contract says. So with the help of Mr. Attorney here, I'm going to read this. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953 subdivision C3, the board provides this oral summary of the salary and or fringe benefit payments provided to the superintendent by way of the pending employment contract. The term of the new, renewed, or amended employment contract between the district and the superintendent is from July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2027. The new annual salary to be paid to the superintendent for the 2024-2025 year is $268,221 per year. And the other elements of compensation in the contract include A, district payments towards a health benefit package in the same amount as other full-time district management employees. B, 20 days of annual vacation. C, district paid dues for superintendent's membership dues in the Association of California School Administrators, ACSA, American Association of School Administrators, AASA, Chamber of Commerce, California School Boards Association, CSBA, and other such memberships as may be approved by the board. And D, reimbursement of actual and necessary business expenses. I am going to call this action the approval of the superintendent's contract to question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
Jesus, aye.
Texoni, aye.
Mask on.
Falls Graph, aye. Sir, it has been our pleasure to watch you make this district grow into area where you have a focus on education. You are accessible to everyone. You're equitable to everyone. Your performance is exemplary, and it is our honor to see you stay here for the next 3 years. Do not move from that chair. Congratulations, sir. Item B, employment agreement, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. Do I have a motion?
A motion. I'll second.
Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Falsgraf. I'm thrilled to add to our dynamic team, our growing team, Mr. Kai Wen. He's coming to us having already served and have a breadth of experience as an assistant superintendent of business services. His breadth of knowledge in fiscal and finance is profound, coupled with his experiences, his other strengths in terms of just discovering and looking into Mr. Kai. Many have said that he's trustworthy, very collaborative, first one in, last one out at the district office, and he's very effective. And one story that really stood out for me was as serving as an assistant superintendent of business services. One of the sites that you were supporting, one of the school sites that you were supporting was getting a revamp or reworking of their playground equipment. And it was shared with me that, yes, you took the principal's input, but then in the morning you decided to go ahead a week in advance to go ahead and round up a group of students to really kind of find out from them what is their perspective and what are their needs for playground equipment. And that really stood out for me. And that really exemplifies a very collaborative nature and spirit. So we're looking forward to our work with you and growing our team. And we're looking for a fruitful and productive work environment with you. So,
Board members.
Welcome.
Welcome, sir. We're glad to have you on our team.
Welcome aboard. It's gonna be great working with you.
I hope you stay a long time. We'll
So,
start off with that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not
What?
done. Am I ever done just that quick? Okay, so I
Come
hope
on,
you.
pen pals.
Shush. Okay. Um, I'm very excited that you're here. I was very excited that you're here before. I just heard that story from Dr. Sahakian, but students are always number one. For me, that's why we're all here. The board, every single person that works here, parent organizations, we're here for the students. So it excites me that that's where your heart is as well. So I thank you from those students, and I'm excited for our students that are going to be here. That's a very cool story to hear. Thank you.
We have to officially vote you in, but I'm sure it sounds good. But welcome to the team, and we look forward to seeing your work, and it should be exciting. Our CFO of the company I work for is also named Kai, so he's Dutch though, so it's a little different spelling, but that should be good.
I'll take Kai for 400. Look, we have very dynamic discussions when it comes to the audit reports and that kind of thing. And you'll find that your superintendent's going to give you room. And we like to make sure that the questions we ask for the people who are watching this, you're going to have the opportunity to show your expertise and money. Feel free. You and the superintendent figure things out. But I come from a time in the old days when the superintendent would nod at the person to tell them what to say and not say. So we have a very dynamic, this is a team. We depend on your expertise. Did you come out of Capel? Did she come out of Capel? Bring your enrollment and I'll be happy. Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
Yeah, Susai.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on, aye.
Falls FI, welcome aboard. Item C, personnel action report. Do you have anything you want to talk about? Oh, we need to move it in.
I'll move.
Second.
Thank you. What I mentioned at the last board meeting, we've been working diligently to ensure that we're filling vacancies as quickly as possible with quality staff as key before we start up schools on August 14th. One mentioned from the PAR is a resignation. I just want to go ahead and highlight that. I'd like to note and thank Ms. Mika Kramer, our SPED coordinator, who's taken on a coordinator role much closer to home. So I'm happy for her on that. I thank her for heightening the structures within our SPED team and for her lens in providing the special education team and teachers the professional development that they sought out. She had a keen lens for that. Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Wishing you much success. You don't need the luck, but wishing you all the best in your future endeavors. That's all I have. Thank you.
Does anyone have comments? Michelle Brandmeier, you are the best. You have been a support in my daughter's life that is irreplaceable for 10 years. And I want to focus on Cheryl when I make my vote. Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
Yeah, Susai abstain.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on, aye.
Falls Graf, no. Thank you, Cheryl. We're good. Got that. Do you need an explanation? I don't want Cheryl to go. Yeah. Okay, so the next item is, that rattled me a little bit, guys. That's significant. That someone would give their life, 10 years of their life to one student. Education and Pupil Services, VHS Phase 3 beautification project. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Like I mentioned earlier, on May 23rd, Mr. Sparks, our TOSA for Student Services at Vasquez / Athletic Director for Vasquez, he presented a proposal for two projects. One was the Vasquez gym door wraps, And we had some visuals, and it is attached here as well to this agenda 10A. He also presented the main office beautification project with inspiration, the Mustang logo that you saw on the summer project list from Mr. Mora earlier this evening. What was a standout for all of us, and we appreciate Vasquez and thank you, Mr. Sparks and team, that they surveyed the student body in terms of the type of, logo Mustang, whether it was an evil Mustang or not an evil Mustang. Remember that from Aislinn. So the student's voice was heard loud and clear, and based on that, the draft mural as well as beautification project could be found on the attachment for 10A. And tonight it's up for an action item.
Can we see the pictures? Are there pictures? Maybe zip through it, show us the choices. I want to make sure it's in the record on television that the students, I want to see what the students picked. I've been in the past involved in too many Denver Broncos and Boise State, God knows what.
So from my recollection, picture to the right, Mr. Sparks did indicate that that's the logo that was decided upon. However, they're going to go ahead and condense where Vasquez is on one line, and so it's not separated as such on the right. That was the picture that was decided upon, or the design. And then I think, Mr. Herdosia, there was a picture of the main office as well. And then the current main office to the left, and then the Mustang logo with the inspirational words of teamwork. I'm getting old, I can't see the rest. So, but this picture on the right.
That's my line. Thank you. Okay, that it? Could we go back a couple of slides? Right there, the one on the right. That is not in a representation of a voter trustee area, is it? No. Okay, thank you. Discussion board.
Very exciting. That's it.
I don't know what that is. I think there's catfish in that water. Go ahead.
It's good to see the improvements in the gym and the office. I think it'll be great.
I know students and staff have been talking about this for a few years, and this has been a goal for a while, so I love seeing it come to fruition. I think it's going to be very exciting when it's done.
It's always nice to see improvements, so I'm glad they're doing something to show their spirit and enthusiasm about the school.
Thank you, Mr. Sparks. And what was the funding source for this?
So thank you for the question. So there was quite a bit of carryover from donations, one being the Acton Women's Club. So we're appreciative of our partnerships with such organizations.
Did any of the student groups or sports groups or boosters and do this?
No.
Good, thank you. Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
Jesus, I.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mascot.
Falls graph, aye. Okay, I'm going to be careful introducing this. I want everyone, this is item A, initiation of CVRA, process to transition to trustee area elections in 2026. I'll go ahead and introduce this. I want everybody to be aware that there's an attorney representing and presenting what this is all about, and that should be an indicator to everyone. Mr. Weingart, take the stand, please. Yeah, let's move it in. Go ahead.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
No, we're
I'll
not voting.
motion.
Move.
Oh, sorry.
Motion.
I second.
Okay, there you go. Take over. Mr. Weingard was the head legal counsel for the Orange County Office of Education for 30 years. And if you want a manual on how to run a school district, everything about a school district, all the laws, all the rules, you will find he is the primary author of the Orange County Office of Education manual on how to run school districts. Welcome, Mr. Weingart.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it.
Was it accurate?
Yeah, I did work I was general counsel for the Orange County Department of Education for 34 years. One of my duties was to advise the county committee on school district organization. So I was involved in the trustee area elections and the transition to trustee area elections. And then I retired from that position and joined Atkinson Anderson, Lawyer Rudin Romo, the firm that I'm with now. And they asked me to step in and handle the California Voting Rights Act issues for school districts. So, yeah.
You're very humble, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here, Board President Paulsgraf, members of the board, Superintendent Sakian. Tonight, I was going to provide the board and the community with an overview of the California Voting Rights Act. So if we could go to the next slide, please.
Hey, Ron, would you mind
Yes.
speaking into the mic?
Oh, am I too far away?
Yeah. Yeah, you can pull it off.
Oh,
You freestyle with it.
oh, okay. Happy to.
Don't rattle
Thank
the
you.
attorney.
Okay. So this slide presentation kind of is framed in frequently asked questions about the California Voting Rights Act. And one of the questions that the community asks quite often is, why is the governing board of the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District considering a change from the at-large system of voting to the district-based system? And it comes down to practical reasons and financial reasons. The California Voting Rights Act favors trustee area elections over at-large elections. The cost of litigation, if you dispute it, is estimated between $100,000 and $1 million. A number of public agencies have been sued over the California Voting Rights Act, including the city of Palmdale, and that lawsuit has gone into the millions. And it's very difficult to win a California Voting Rights Act lawsuit. And as the public may be aware, the school district has received a demand letter from an attorney indicating that, demanding that the school district transition to trustee area voting system, or else they will file a lawsuit. And this has happened throughout the state, unfortunately, and those public agencies that have chosen to litigate, except for the city of Santa Monica, which that case is still pending, all the other public agencies have lost. So, and ended up spending a lot of money. So most public agencies have decided, for practical reasons, to voluntarily transition to trustee area elections. So let me kind of walk through it. If we could go to the next slide. So what exactly does the California Voting Rights Act prohibit? It prohibits the use of any election system, in particular at-large system, that impairs the ability of a protected class, a racial or ethnic minority, to elect a candidate of their choice, or their ability to influence the outcome of the election. So what they look at is past elections. They look at, have minority candidates run and lost? Have they been unsuccessful? Has the minority community voted in favor of one candidate, but their choice is always lost as a result of the majority choosing another candidate? So there's an analysis that demographers do to make that determination. It's costly, it takes time, and most public agencies have decided to forego that analysis and just move voluntarily to a trustee area election system. So the term that's used in the California Voting Rights Act, they use trustee area elections, they use district-based elections. This applies to cities and special districts as well. And they define district-based elections as a method of electing members of the board where the candidate must reside within an election district that is divisible, usually by 5 or 7. In this case, it would be 5, and is elected only by the voters residing in that district. So some districts have an at-large system where you vote, the whole district votes for candidates. Some districts have a system where people have to live in a particular trustee area, but the whole district votes for the candidates. Those are considered district-based elections under the California Voting Rights Act. and only a system where only the people in that trustee area vote for that candidate, whereas that considered a district-based election. And that's what's favored by the California Voting Rights Act. So if we could go to the next slide. So I think I mentioned how they define racially polarized voting. If we could go back one, sorry. Yeah. That's where the difference in the choice of candidates by the minority community or the protected class is different than the majority of the community, and their candidate is unsuccessful. So if we could go to the next slide. So how do they determine a violation? They'll look at past elections, they'll look at candidates who've run in the past, and if there's a pattern of minority candidates or candidates favored by the minority community losing because of the majority of the electorate voting in another candidate, then they'll find racially polarized voting. And I can tell you from experience that we've done these studies in a few districts, and in most cases, in some cases, I should say, have found racially polarized voting. And so then we went and changed to district-based elections. Okay, so this next slide kind of goes into racially polarized voting a little bit more. Like I said, you look at past elections, you look at candidates, you look at propositions that may have passed or not passed, that type of thing. And then if they find racially polarized voting, a court can order the school district to implement district-based elections. Give the next slide. So that's one of the remedies, is ordering district-based elections that are tailored to remedy the violation. If we could go to the next slide. The other thing that the court can do is award the prevailing plaintiff's attorney reasonable attorney's fees. But what the courts consider to be reasonable, a lot of lay people went to consider reasonable. If, for example, in the city of Palmdale case, the award of attorney's fees was in excess of $4 million. Well, that's a big hit for any small public agency to take. And so that is why most small public agencies voluntarily move toward district-based elections or trustee area elections. And it's very difficult, even if the school district were to prevail, to recover costs because you have to find that the action was frivolous, unreasonable, or without foundation. And that's very, very difficult to prove. If we could go to the, oh, thank you. Okay. So given that background, what is the process for drawing the boundaries for trustee areas? So it's a fairly complicated process. It begins with 2 public hearings during board meetings. And during those first 2 hearings, members of the public provide input to the board on the criteria and composition of the proposed trustee areas. And let me go to the next slide. Then following the second public hearing, the board considers a resolution that identifies the criteria for the demographer to use in preparing the maps. Then the demographer prepares at least 2 sets of maps and an election plan identifying which trustee area elections will be held in 2026, which ones in 2028. And that's reviewed by the board and approved by the board. The thing to keep in mind, it doesn't change the terms of the current incumbents. Their terms remain the same. Okay, then if we could go to the next slide. Effective January 1st of this year, the Education Code enacted Elections Code 221130, and it set forth the criteria, which weren't set forth in the code before, but these are criteria that we generally followed even before this year. And so I've done a couple of these transitions since January 1st, and it hasn't really changed how we in practice do it. It just requires us to do a little more paperwork, but we basically follow the same procedure. So it requires that the trustee areas be substantially equal in population, which means that the most populous and the least populous trustee area cannot vary more than 10% in population. So this is a key factor when we draw these maps. because sometimes we'll draw a map, the demographer will draw a map, and somebody will say, a board member, maybe some member of the community says, well, I think if we move the line a little bit farther to the west or a little bit farther to the north, that would make more sense. And so we can try doing that, but sometimes it throws off the balance and it ends up being more than 10% variance. So then we can't do it. If it stays within the 10% variance, then we can certainly do it. So that's where the demographer comes in. That's really the importance of having a demographer. Next slide. Yeah, you've got it. Thanks. So subsection B requires that these the criteria is you comply with the U.S. Constitution, the California Constitution, and the Federal Voting Rights Act, which means you don't discriminate against minorities. You don't do what's called cracking or packing. So you don't take an area that's heavily minority, say with African Americans or Latinos, and divide it in half so that they don't have a majority. Or if they have enough members of that group to form 2 trustee areas, for example, but you pack them all into 1 trustee area, that also would be a violation. So it has to be equitable and fair to minority groups. And then what we're required to do also is determine whether it's possible to create a majority of a minority group in the trustee area. So for example, if the population appears to be spread out, let's take the Latino community, for example, we would still check to see if it's possible to create a trustee area that has a majority of Latinos. Okay, then you have to publish on your redistricting website the results of that analysis. So that requirement is new this year, but that was something that we did informally before. So now it's just a little bit more formalized. And then starting at the bottom of this slide, they list the criteria in ranked order in the statute. So that makes it a little more formal too. We generally followed this before, but now they've ranked them as well. So they have to be geographically contiguous, which means they can't be separated. There can't be any space in between or any territory in between the trustee area. If we go to the next slide, it has to be where practical, contiguous, geographical integrity of a neighborhood has to be kept together. You have to look at local communities of interest and respect those local communities of interest. And that's defined as a population that shares a common social or economic interest. So that could be an ethnic community, that could be a historical community. For example, in a recent district that I worked with, there was a historical African-American area. And so they wanted to keep that together. So we deemed that to be a community of interest. So we kept that together. They wanted to follow elementary school boundary lines because they had 5 elementary schools. So they deemed that to be a community of interest. So they followed generally, not exactly because it wasn't quite 10%, but generally followed those elementary elementary school boundaries. Okay, the next slide. So this lists some of the characteristics of a community interest. Could be education, such as elementary boundaries. Some larger districts, they like to follow the high school boundaries. You look at other types of neighborhoods that identify as neighborhoods. They could share, they could be a cultural district. Like if you take Pasadena, you have Old Pasadena in the downtown area. That could be considered a community of interest. As we get to know the community better, myself and the demographer, with the help of the board and the community, we might be able to identify some communities of interest here in Acton Agua Dulce. If we go to the next slide. So where it doesn't conflict with the preceding criteria, we look at the integrity of a city or census designated place. I don't believe that'll apply here because I don't think we have a city. But in some of your larger school districts, you have multiple cities within the school district, so we have to look at those. We look at natural and artificial barriers. So as we get to know the community, we'll identify those. That could be railroad tracks, that could be a wash, that could be a river, even if it doesn't have any water in it. That could be major streets, that could be various different things. It could be a freeway. We've had it in some districts. We've used freeways to, as a boundary line. So it just depends on what makes sense for that community. And it should be easily identifiable and understandable by residents. So it should be familiar to the community as well. Okay, and then, we also want to encourage geographical compactness. So we try to make them to look as rectangular as possible. It depends on the district though. If the district is generally rectangular, in shape, then we can make 5 districts that are generally rectangular in shape. But some districts, school districts are very irregular, in shape, and so that can be difficult to do. But that's something we'll determine as we go forward. But we can't create long, narrow corridors and, connect distant populations. You might have seen that in some of the congressional districts that people talk about being gerrymandered, where they, take 2 areas that, might have minority populations and they connect them with a narrow corridor and bypass other populations. That's something that's prohibited here in California. If we go to the next slide, please. Another requirement is that we not adopt election district boundaries for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, political candidate, or political party. In theory, that sounds very good and makes sense and it sounds reasonable, but in practice, it can be very difficult because sometimes if you have 2 incumbents who live near each other and they're in the same trustee area, or if you draw the line a certain way, it favors one incumbent and it disfavors another. And if you move the line a little farther to the west or a little farther to the east, then it favors the other incumbent and then discriminates against the prior incumbent. So in practice, that can be very difficult, but we do the best we can and try to, not favor or discriminate against any incumbent. And so next, okay, you're 1 step ahead of me. Okay. And then we're not supposed to adopt any criteria that isn't listed in the elections code or that conflicts with the election code. If it's compatible with the election code, that's fine. But where it really comes down to is when we get to know the community, then we look at how do we apply this criteria? What makes sense for this school district? Where should the boundaries be drawn? What communities should be kept together? What neighborhoods should be kept together? So in the process for drawing the maps, the demographer will usually draft 2 maps. Most of the districts that I've worked with, we've had anywhere from 2 to 6 maps, depending on what happens. Sometimes a member of the community submits a map. So we'll look at that map and that sometimes the board considers it. I've had one district that actually adopted a map that was submitted by a community member. So it just depends. I had some unusual circumstances in one district, so we ended up with 12 maps, but that was highly unusual. It's usually somewhere in the range of 2 to 6 maps. And so what we do is we go to the next slide. At the 3rd public hearing, we have initial showing of the maps. They have to be posted 7 days in advance to allow for public input. The board reviews the maps, the public provides input for the maps. And if we want changes in the maps, then the demographer will draw more maps. We'll post them 7 days in advance of the 4th public hearing, and then the board can consider those maps as well. So then the board adopts a map, the sequencing of elections, and then we submit it to the Los Angeles County Committee on School District Organization. And we also ask the county committee to waive an election because the code still requires that the community approve the transition, but most public agencies have that waived because that ends up delaying the process, ends up causing litigation and costing the community a lot of money. And so then it goes to the county committee. The county committee holds a public hearing here at the district, likely to be in this room, so that the community can provide input. They review the process. They look at some of the things that they are concerned about is they want to make sure that there's community input, that you hold, in addition to the 4 public hearings, that you hold community forums. Those, sometimes we hold those in person, but we also do those by Zoom quite often. And we did that in the last district that I worked with. and it worked very successfully. We got better participation on the Zoom community meeting than we did in the in-person community meeting. So that's very helpful to do it by Zoom. And they look at the map itself. Is it reasonable? Is the sequencing reasonable? And then following the approval of the county committee, it goes to the registrar of voters for implementation. So that's kind of the overview. With that, I'll just open it up to questions if the board members have any questions.
Let me kick this off. This is significant. I'm going to open this up. Is there anybody that wants to make a public comment? Can you monitor the chat, please? If there's anybody that wants to make a public comment about this, this will be your time. See if anyone is responsive in the chat, please.
Okay. So I think we have one person who wants to make a public comment.
So would you like to make your comment before the board has discussion or after? Okay. Is there anyone in the chat that would like to be brought up? Okay. Please state your name. And you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Angie Martin. I actually have some questions for Mr. Wingart. So these boundaries, are these maps changed every election? Because you were saying that the incumbents, they would move it depending on the incumbents. I mean, we sometimes can't even get enough candidates to actually hold a true election, just like most recently.
Hang on just a
So,
second.
Yes,
Make your questions,
Okay.
Ron, once.
okay.
No,
Okay,
just
okay.
let the comment get out. We got
Um,
3 minutes.
Okay, I
Thank
was
you.
just about to write them down, trying to think of what the other one was. And is there any fiscal impact to our school district because of this change? I know like if you try to fight it, there will be a fiscal impact because we're gonna have attorney fees, but just changing this, the way that we vote, because we have a very small community. Really wondering. Thank you.
Thank you. So, let me try to figure out here the best way to do this. Ron, let's also see if there are board comments and then maybe you can tie that all together. Okay, you've had the look. Okay.
Thank you for your presentation, first and foremost. It seems very clear we either do this ourselves or this happens to us. So that's a nasty lawsuit, and I don't think complicated topic, isn't it? But basically just thank you for helping us with this process and taking time out of your evening to make sure everyone understands all of the very complicated topic.
No comment.
Thank you for the great presentation and unpacking the California Voting Act for us and the community members. I think it's important that it does provide us a sense of what's going to happen in the future. But I'm really curious to know the two entities that are fighting this battle, what are their legal arguments that they're using? So I'm just curious to know. Not that I'm thinking that we should go that route, but I'm curious to see what their standing is.
My comment would just be to the community, and I would just urge the community to please get involved when we have our 4 or more meetings. Please show up. Please give us your input. The more input that we have, the better. So please get involved. We're small but mighty, so please get involved.
Yeah, I think for us, we've actually heard this presentation already, and thank you for your presentation, Ron, and coming down and giving it in person. I think it's much more meaningful that way for sure. But just to let it sink in exactly what it means. So currently our voting system now is at large, as you described it, which pretty much means that if there are 3 open seats, that any number of candidates can run, and the top three people that receive votes will get those three open seats, and that's the way it works today, and the way we have been doing it. And with this change, it will divide our district, based on the district boundaries into 5 equal districts, per the California Voting Rights Act. And then you would need to live in one of those districts to be able to run for one of those district seats. And only the people that are in those districts can vote for one of those the person that are running for those seats. So forgive me thought it might be helpful to break it down into layman's terms, just so everybody understood it clearly. So if that brings up any more questions, please ask them through the chat. But Ron, am I accurate in my very succinct breakdown? Thank you.
Thank you, board members. My comments will be this. It's very clear in there that board member actions, comments, or anything that could be construed as something that affects a voting area to an advantage is not to be done. Okay. So I'll stop with that, but I do have 2 questions. Ron, is there a cost associated to this action being imposed on the district, or a demand for cost? How much is that cost? And what party does that amount, if any, go to? We're not talking about the cost of any development of the program, but just what came to us. Was there a cost associated to that? Do you have an estimate of how much that is? And what entity takes that money?
So the prospective plaintiff, the attorney who sent the demand letter, is entitled by law under the elections code to $30,000 in fees plus an inflation factor. So it's about 38,000 right now. But in other districts, I've been able to negotiate with him to make it 30,000. So that's the first cost initially. The other cost, of course, is your attorney's fees for the process, which are probably in the area of $20,000 to $30,000 as well. And the demographer cost is about 20,000 as well.
So I'm again,
Those are the costs you were.
I'm going to focus on not what the projected cost is, because what we're going to call to question here in a few minutes is not what we think about this, about whether or not we're going to give you the direction to formulate the action. So I want to make it very clear. So someone is going to receive somewhere between $30,000 and $38,000 for filing what they filed to this district. And can you describe any effort that might be associated to that cost outside of writing the letter to the district?
Generally, what the attorney does is he writes a letter in conjunction with his demographer. So his demographer looks at the demographics of the district, and I would call it initial review, does an initial review. And if they feel that there was racially polarized voting, then they allege in the letter that there has been racially polarized voting in the past, and they demand fees. So out of that 30,000 plus, the attorney reimburses his demographer. And I'm not sure how much of that 30,000 goes to the demographer and how much goes to the attorney.
So that's typically,
This is something that the legislature authorized in the
so,
elections code.
so that's typically writing a letter and having someone look at demography data is typically has a $30,000 to $38,000 price tag to the district. Anyway, that was a rhetorical question.
correct.
Thank you, Ron. Please address the questions that came up. Please don't
Sure.
give 'em preferences to mine, but I needed everyone to understand
Sure.
that.
No, I appreciate that. Well, let me kind of go in reverse order if I might. So Mr. Mascone was talking about the impact that this would have on the individual voter, about dividing into 5 equal districts and voting for one candidate. So in addition to that, the impact is going to be, instead of voting every 2 years, you're going to be voting every 4 years. So you're going to be in a trustee area, and there'll be a candidate that you would choose. That person serves a term for 4 years, and then after 4 years, you get to vote again. So there'll be an election where you don't vote at all. So that sometimes is a surprise to people in the community. Because they're used to voting every 2 years when they vote at large. So that's kind of another impact of what Mr. Moscone was mentioning. Like under the current system at large, you basically vote every 2 years for 3 candidates or 2 candidates, depending on which. And then there was a question about whether the city of Santa Monica, and what arguments they've made. So the city of Santa Monica, every city and every school district is different, has different characteristics. So the city of Santa Monica, what they're alleging is that our Hispanic community is spread out through the whole city. We don't have racially polarized elections because we've had Hispanic candidates elected in the past using the at-large system. Excuse me. So therefore, we shouldn't have to go to trustee area elections. And in addition, thank you. In addition, we can't create a majority Latino district because there's not a sufficient concentration anywhere in the city. That's their argument. And it went all the way up to the California Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, we want to send it back to the lower court. We want you to analyze this data using this criteria and determine whether that's the case. And is there a history of racially polarized voting? Have they violated the California Voting Rights Act? And not just a majority, but has it affected the ability of the Latino community in the city of Santa Monica to influence the election? Because it says not only elect the candidate of the choice, but it says to influence the election. And usually that means forming a coalition with another group. So Hispanics or Latinos might form a coalition with African Americans or with Asians or another group, and then, be able to elect the candidate of the choice. So the lower court didn't look at that aspect of it, so they sent it back to the lower court. So it's still kind of in limbo as to who's going to win in that case. But in all the other cases, the public agency has lost. A city of Palmdale lost. The court even voided an election that the city was going to have at large, postponed the election, and then ended up having a trustee area election later on. So it's very difficult to win. And those are pretty big entities. The city of Santa Monica is a fairly big city, city of Palmdale. So they have the resources to fight the litigation. The other question is that came up was what if we adopt trustee areas, what happens in the future? Well, then there's kind of like a maintenance factor. I guess you could call it a maintenance factor that every 10 years after a census, then you have to look at your trustee area boundaries to see if they are still within the 10% range. If they're still within the 10% range, then you don't have to change them. If they are outside the 10% range, then you do have to change them. So I'll give you an example. I think I might have mentioned this before, but in 2021, we had a number of districts that came to us and said, do we need to change our trustee area boundaries because of the 2020 census? So we had a demographer look at it. About half of the districts that we were working with had to make changes and half didn't. So it depends on whether there was a lot of growth in that particular school district. So I'll give you an example. Irvine Unified School District in Orange County had a tremendous amount of growth in the southern part of the school district. So their boundaries varied from about 28% from the largest to the smallest over a 10-year period. So they had to redraw their boundaries quite a bit. We had a few that varied maybe 12, 13%. So they had to draw their boundaries. The biggest one that I remember was Irvine Unified. Let's see. Somebody also asked if what happens if nobody runs from that trustee area. Yeah, that's a problem. That's usually mentioned to me at every time I do this. What happens is then you declare a vacancy and then you appoint somebody to fill that vacancy, but that person has to live in that trustee area. And it's particularly challenging for smaller school districts because you may have an area that has less community involvement than another area. So it might be difficult to find somebody who wants to serve on the board. But that's an issue that if we'd have to go to the legislature to change if there's a concern. If that happens, then maybe we could go to the legislature and have, make some changes. I think I hope I answered all the questions that came up.
Let's dwell a little bit more now about the public question. And I think that led to what is the initial cost to the district? So revisit that. And then if the intent was to capture outlying costs, what that looks like for the process or whatever, do we frame that?
There's a cost, for our attorney's fees, for the demographer's fees. Whether there's a difference in the cost of the election, we'd have to check with the registrar of voters to see if trustee area elections cost more than at-large elections.
But I think the initial question was, what is the cost to the district right now? And that was estimated at
30,000.
between,
30 and 38,000.
and then I think the other part of that question is just envisioning what this process may cost to put together. Is there a ballpark? I think you said.
Yeah, I would say our fees would be somewhere around, could be 25 to 30,000, the demographer about 20,000. So I'd say, $40,000 to $50,000 in that range. For
So,
our attorney's fees and the demographer.
so we're talking about something that could cost between $75,000 and $100,000, assuming that nobody takes additional actions and
Right.
it hangs up and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can tell you though, if you don't decide to go forward voluntarily, I've had a district that contested it and litigated the issue with this same attorney, and they ended up settling down the road 2 years later and paid attorney's fees in excess of $600,000.
And did they adopt the model anyway after that?
They did adopt the model after that, and they adopted a map that was proposed by the attorney, the other attorney.
So we're talking about just reasonably foreseeable, and notice I'm not talking about any attorney firm. I asked what it cost. It's foreseeable that this cost could be at a minimum somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000.
Yeah. Yes.
Does that satisfy the
sounds about
public
right.
question?
Yeah. Sure.
Angie Martin. So my follow-up question would be when you were saying about the trustee boundaries, if we don't have anyone who wants to run in that area. I am a chairperson of a committee where for our last 2 meetings, we haven't been able to even have a quorum to conduct our business. What happens then if our school board cannot conduct business because no one is coming for an appointment? We're just so fortunate that we even have sometimes one person who wants to come for an appointment. What happens if we can't conduct our business? I mean, we can't change the legislature overnight. Our school district has to run, so.
You still have 1 minute and 6 seconds left.
Well, as I mentioned, if there's a vacancy because nobody runs in one of the trustee areas, then the board would appoint somebody from that trustee area. But you would still have 4 of the 5 board members, so you could still conduct business. You need 3 board members to conduct business. If it gets below 3, then you don't have a quorum and you can't conduct business. I'm not aware of that happening, but I suppose what would happen is then the county superintendent has to step in. And I'm not sure what happens after that, to be honest with you, because I've never researched it because hasn't happened and nobody's asked before.
You may have your
But we could
opportunity.
do that. Sure, we can research that and let you know.
Is there anyone that has shown up on the internet that wishes to? So I think everyone will have an ability to do that once we vote on what we're gonna do. Is there anything else anyone has? Last call. Board, I'm gonna frame this by saying we are not voting on whether we like this. We're not voting on whether we don't like it. We're not voting on whether the legislature is our best friend. What we are voting on right now is to support, is it the recommendation of the attorney that we should engage and begin this process at this time
Yes,
and be responsive to the action?
right. Yes,
Okay.
to initiate the action, there'll be, several resolutions in the future to come to the board. At the August meeting, there'll be a formal resolution to begin the process. And then there'll be, several resolutions after that as we go along.
So board, what we are voting on right now is we are voting on to support the attorney and the district administrators to take the steps to formulate the action and define the process. Call to question?
Cameron, I.
Mazer.
Jesus, I.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mask on that.
Falls Graph, aye. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Politics. Okay, B. Have a safe drive, Ron. Approval of the 2023-2024 local control and accountability report. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Quick comment. We had a robust discussion about this the last time, and there were numerous questions and comments. I would like to cycle back through the board to see if there's anything else before we vote to approve.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay,
Again, I just want to urge the public to actually read the document and go through it. There's a lot of great work there and a lot of great information about what our plans for are as a school district and where we're putting our attention, efforts, money, etc.
I'd like to thank staff for the work that they've done because the LCAP and the budget have to tie together. Ms. Chamberlain, would you come forward, please, and summarize this for us?
And while Dr. Chamberlain is coming up, our Director for Ed Services, Pupil Services, like Mr. Falsgraf mentioned at the June 6th meeting, Dr. Chamberlain provided our community an overview of the 23-24 LCAP. And there's a self-reflection component that's a requirement, and Dr. Chamberlain is going to be reviewing that briefly tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the only other thing I have to add is another report that we do. So, and it's a really quick kind of brief overview. It's a little repetitive of the presentation from 2 weeks ago, but we do yearly report to the California dashboard, our self-reflection, and it's based on the LCFF priorities, which are the basic services and conditions implementing how we're implementing our state academic standards, how we're addressing our parent and family engagement and also school climate, as well as providing access to a broad course of study for our students. So these kind of repetitive, you heard me share some of this 2 weeks ago. This is actually a self-reflection document that I looked at last year's to kind of see where we were there, and I updated where we've moved forward and where we're going.
Okay.
That's it.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Dr. Chamberlain?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here every single time to explain to us. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoy being here.
We good? Call the question?
Cameron, I.
Mazer.
Jesus, I.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mask on it.
Falls Graph, aye. Item C, approval of 2024-2025 budget report. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. The adopted budget plan for 24-25 generally consists of proposed expenditures as well as revenues for the upcoming fiscal year, which begins July 1st. And as you all know, and the community knows, Mr. Vensko at the June 6th board meeting did a thorough presentation for review and now for approval. Thank you.
Board comments?
Has anything changed from the last report that we heard from the last meeting?
No.
Mr. Wynn's not going to present budget?
No, we'll get.
I appreciate that. It was a joke.
I can see he thinks you're very funny. Uh, Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, I.
Jesus, I.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mask on.
Falls, I. D, certification of signatures. This Assistant Superintendent of Business.
Yes, now that he's official,
I'll motion.
yes, thank you.
Okay,
Second.
good. Do I have to ask for a motion every time? Or are we not learning? Just jump in. I'll move. Okay.
Just a formality to approve him as a certified signer for district-related documents. Thank you.
Questions? Nothing. Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, I.
Jesus, I.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mask on.
Falls, I. Board comments. Mr. Mays.
Just goodbye. We'll miss you. And welcome, sir. We're glad you're here. Good, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming either on Zoom or in person. Ace, we're gonna miss you. So congratulations on your new journey, and sir, welcome. I also want to thank all the parents and all the students and the staff for a great year, and hopefully you have a great summer vacation, and we'll see you when we reconvene in August.
I'm excited for summertime. I'm excited for all of the new things that are happening in our district. One thing that I do want to point out as far as summer goes, our maintenance and operations during the summertime, and correct me if this didn't happen this year, but I know several years in the past, and I didn't hear anything different this year, but they allow 10 and 11-month employees to sign up for summer work. Is that
That's
still-
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is, from what I'm learning, not working in this district that is kind of unique to our district, and other districts don't allow that. So employees just kind of suffer and aren't allowed to work, or aren't invited to work, and it's not as inviting to work during the summertime. And I just want to let classified employees know how lucky they are that is available to them in this district. I know that saved me and my family for years, being able to work, and I got to do some pretty cool things like ride on lawnmower and paint the football fields, and we did some cool stuff, and I definitely had a lot of fun and worked very hard in the summer times. And I just wanted to point out that I do miss that aspect of working for this district. So I just wanted to thank Ernesto for putting all of that together and making sure that everybody knows that they can work, and having work for everybody and coordinating all that and getting everything done. It's a very cool thing that this district offers to our classified employees. Speaking of classified employees, on our PAR report, we did have 2 security positions. That I didn't want to comment on the PAR report because I didn't want people to think that my vote was directly related to my past position as a CSEA member and a CSEA president. But in the past, I was CSEA president when our security position was laid off. And I just want to say how excited I am to see that position come back to our school. And I'm very excited for not only to see the position come back, but to see Guido come back. So that is a huge step in the right direction. I will add that I'm really excited to someday see librarians come back. I would encourage, if you're not a librarian, I would encourage you to not check out books. That's just my own opinion. I think that's taking away from a classified employee's duties. Librarians should be in our schools. That's all I have to say about that.
Congratulations, everyone, for closing out another school year, and enjoy your summer. See you next time.
I'd like to thank the people that are providing summer school services and ESY services, so our most vulnerable students don't suffer gaps in their therapies, and that makes a difference, believe me. I'd like to thank staff for another exemplary year in the service of our students and their futures. Sometimes I think we all get busy and we don't really realize what you're doing for kids is going to affect their esteem, and basically how employable they are and how they see themselves. That's why we're here. The rest of it is just, I don't know, people getting paychecks and whatever. You are here for the students, and I would encourage all staff to sit back and reflect on that conversation you had with that one kid, that whether you knew it or that action you took changed some kid's life that will affect them into adulthood. And those moments can't be captured. And I thank everyone for doing that. Board, thank you for your service to the district this year. A lot of it's not pretty. We went through something tonight that we all handled with good candor, but guys, that means all of you. That's not a voting zone, okay? But it's refreshing to know that you have people up here that are going to vote their conscience, and we're all different people, but you can depend that nobody's going to do something illegal or step over boundaries that take away from our service and the respect the community is supposed to have for us. I will say this, when we put the superintendent's contract together, it is not the superintendent's job to culture this community to make it acceptable for him to be here. It is this board's job to create the community that is ready to accept this gentleman's service. And sometimes I wonder how good we are at that. Take that one home tonight. Tell mommy. That's what I have. Future agenda items. Oh, the calendar. There's a regular board meeting on August 8th, and there's a regular board meeting on August 22nd. You can expect the high-speed rail. Oh, I have one more comment. Maybe I should loop around when I'm done. The high-speed rail authority held their board meeting about the preferred route, which is, I'm not going to politicize this, but our superintendent was there, read into the record the October correspondence that we gave, concerned about tailings and spoils coming up and being daylighted around our schools. I learned from watching that there are 49 some million truckloads coming out of there that nobody seems to know where the dirt's going. That was interesting. But I received a letter that I read into the meeting, a meeting or two ago. I can't remember. I read it. The superintendent is working to have the representative that's offering to tell us about the mitigation efforts. This is not a public lynching. This isn't the principal thing of 2 years ago where everybody comes in and freaks out. This is the authority telling the district what the mitigation measures are for some very specific concerns. The Acton Town Council was there talking, we are not what the students in this district need. And I'm sure there's some overlap, but we have invited people from the rail authority to come in here. The superintendent's been kind enough to reach out for that. And it's going to be an amicable meeting, and I want everybody to be adult, and I don't want anybody to be aggressive, but they're going to offer some questions, and I want that into the record, and I don't want to turn it into a party. So that said, the purpose of this item, is there anyone who doesn't anticipate being here where we would lack a quorum on the 8th, especially the 22nd? Good. Future agenda items. I don't see anything listed. It's been my suggestion to staff to try to get ahead of it, like the maintenance plans and things like that, throw the agenda stuff on a calendar and try to back out of it when your first interim report is, when your LCAP stuff is, and get that posted and populate the agenda with the basic business that this board needs to do to support the superintendent and the staff. And then we build the free time, if there's any left around, you know, what trivialities we all want. So we'll leave agenda building up to the superintendent. I like that. That said, everybody have a great summer. Again, board, I so much appreciate your dependable service. And we will call this meeting, I move to call the meeting to adjourn the meeting at 9:07. Do I
I'll
have a
second.
motion?
Oh, I'll motion.
I'll second.
Call the question.
Cameron, I.
Mays, aye.
Des Souza.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mascot, aye.
Falls Graph, aye. Thank you, everyone.